Welcome and thank you for joining us today as we look towards the new academic year and ask ourselves, is it safe to start booking trips, whether they be residential or international? I'm Ben Lear, Head of Education at Hayes Parsons Insurance Brokers, and in conjunction with my colleague Mark Rose, we are delighted to be joined by Mark Gifford-Lindsay, the Managing Director of Global Action. The webinar will last no longer than 30 minutes, which includes a question and answer session at the end. To submit any questions during the discussion, please click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. The webinar will be recorded with a copy provided shortly afterwards. I will now pass over to Mark from Hayes Parsons, who will run through the topics to be discussed.
Now, first off, on the agenda, Mark will give us an overview of the talks between the school travel sector stakeholder group and the government. We'll then go on to domestic residential visits and talk about the guidance for schools on what they are expected to do and what to expect from the centres that you are visiting. We will try to explore the big question of when can schools go abroad, when they can travel, and ultimately where can they go. There's also been a lot of media attention of late devoted to the government's traffic light system. So we're going to try to explain what the intentions are and the decision process. I will naturally obviously touch on the travel insurance aspects. And then Mark's going to cover off what to look for in a tour operator and how ABTA and ATOL bonding works to protect you financially. We'll then take a more in-depth look into tour operator terms and conditions and what to look for with operators' COVID-19 promises that are now being offered. We'll then have that session of questions and answers. So to start off with, Mark, tell us about the talks that have been going on at the moment.
Sure, good morning everyone. So the School Travel Sector Stakeholder Group, or STSSG, it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? It was formed in late 2020 and it's made up of 7 leading associations within the school travel sector. So it includes ABTA, the School Travel Forum, the Institute of Outdoor Learning, the Outdoor Education Advisors Panel, the Council for Learning Outside the Classroom, PGL, heads of outdoor education centres, and for the overseas sector, the Expedition Providers Association. So the STSSG has been in discussions with the Department of Education, or DfE, the last 9 months, and overall have been pretty successful to date in getting a powerful voice to DfE. Because of this, DfE in return, I think, have got a much better understanding of the school trip sector in the UK and overseas, which is a really good thing. And as you can probably see, DfE have adopted most of the STSSG roadmap for restarting domestic residential visits. Under the latest DfE guidance, there are 2 positive points to highlight. Firstly, under the new bookings heading, DfE has removed the no new bookings guidance. Secondly, DfE have directly mentioned no international school trips until September the 5th. But this is also up for review after the government step 4, i.e. post 21st of June. So in the meantime, there appears to be nothing stopping schools engaging travel companies to book new trips, so long as financial protection is in place for parents at this early stage. And that's the key, I think, financial protection. In terms of the government indemnity, so you may have remembered that previous advice from DfE was that DfE were going to explore the possibility of addressing the gap created by the pandemic in the commercial insurance market relating to travel cancellation insurance. This has now disappeared in the latest DfE guidance, but the DfE hope is that the commercial insurance sector will begin to pick this up for future bookings. And we hope to hear more about this in the next month or 2. After the pandemic, and just looking forwards in a sort of positive light, it is very much hoped that the STSSG will continue and strengthen its relationship with DfE to improve its policy between government and providers.
Thank you for that, Mark. So let's now just look at domestic residential visits and the guidance there that's for schools. Because from 17th of May, schools have been allowed to go on residential visits, and the visits, though, have to be conducted in line with COVID-19 guidance. Schools should keep their children within their consistent, already established bubbles. If more than one bubble is going on the trip, schools need to ensure that those bubbles remain separated throughout the visit, and the bubble should not mix with other school groups or bubbles or other guests. And only teachers and members of the school workforce that are already part of the established school bubble should accompany pupils on the visits. Those staff don't actually count towards the bubble size that the guidance suggests should be sort of circa 30 children. Parents, carers and volunteers should not accompany the group. That's to maintain the integrity of the bubble. So Mark, what should the activity centres be doing and what should schools really expect from them?
Sure. So the STSSG has produced a COVID safe charter to clarify what providers are responsible for. So for example, risk assessments, keeping bubbles separated, information for staff and parents, cleaning accommodation, how to provide safe activities. It's all there. It's a very, very comprehensive document and very easy to follow. The STSSG has also produced COVID secure policy and procedures summarising best practice with resources. So if you are organising a residential trip, these are important documents to look at. And these documents are both available on the ukoutdoors.org.uk homepage under latest news and also on the Hayes Parsons website. That's
right, yes, they are on the website. So looking at when can schools travel abroad then and where can they go? So the question all the schools are asking, when can we do that?
Sure. Well, the current guidance is that schools should not travel abroad until the 5th of September at the earliest. And obviously DFE have mentioned in their advice that this is up for review around step 4, i.e. post 21st of June. So we hope to get further updates in July, August, certainly before the new academic year.
So is the intention that the DFE follow the advice of the FCDO, or in your mind, do you think these are likely to diverge?
Yeah, that's the intention, but there's no cast iron guarantee.
Right. So what's likely to be required for children travelling abroad? Are we looking at sort of COVID-19 testing prior to travel or COVID-19 passports?
Well, you may have read in the media that the government are considering vaccinating secondary school children in September. And if that does go ahead, which we all hope it does, it may be that children will need to have a vaccine passport or have proof of a PCR test within 72 hours before travelling. But it will also depend on the destination entry requirements as well.
Right, so now sort of turning to this government traffic light system. At the moment, there are very few countries on the green list, and a number of those countries listed will not allow visitors from the UK. In essence, you can only travel to green listed countries. Those that are amber and red, the FCDO continue to advise against all but essential travel. But can you explain how that list is actually operated?
Sure. So the risk posed by individual countries will be continuously monitored, and the green, amber and red lists will be updated every 3 weeks, as we've been advised by the government. The Joint Biosecurity Centre will produce risk assessments of countries and territories. Decisions will be taken by ministers who take into account the JBC risk assessments alongside other public health factors. So key factors in the JBC risk assessments of each country, and you can find this from the BBC and other websites. Firstly, the COVID-19 transmission risk. Secondly, the variant of concern transmission risk. And thirdly, the genomic surveillance capability. In terms of additional European countries being added, the 7th of June announcement may not include sort of, I guess, major popular destinations like Spain, Italy and Greece, but these are certainly anticipated by August. And to give you an idea, just inside Global Action, what we're doing is we are currently marketing what we consider lower risk European destinations for summer 2022, like Greece, Switzerland and Albania, and which we consider will be on the government green list this year, or certainly by early next year as well.
Right, so that then brings us on to travel insurance. In the height of the first wave last year, travel insurers began to restrict the cover under their policies, excluding cancellation due to COVID-19 on the basis that after mid-March 2020, this was a known event, and therefore anyone booking a trip at that time would not be covered in the event of cancellation due to COVID-19. And they'd also remove things not just from the cancellation point of view, because renewal of those sort of group policies, they initially had total exclusions, which would have excluded medical expenses, the FCDO ban, cancellation as a result of national or lockdown restrictions, anyone having COVID-19 and not being able to travel, and self-isolation can't travel. Now, as time went on, the cancellation exclusions were relaxed, and insurers began to re-include the cover, but the cover is pretty much limited in the main to medical and other expenses incurred as a result of catching COVID-19 whilst abroad. Now, all of the group policies that I have looked at have similar exclusions. There are, however, some individual policies that will now cover cancellation as a result of catching COVID-19 and therefore unable to travel, but it won't, most of them I've seen don't cover you if you're told to self-isolate. Now, it may be that some parents may wish to purchase their own insurance for this risk, but it's important to maintain a group policy to cover all the other eventualities that may happen. So, for example, if there was an incident involving a number of children and staff suffering injuries, such as a coach crash, minibus crash, that sort of thing, you just wouldn't want to be trying to contact numerous different insurance providers if all the pupils had something separately. So there's still a big place for the group insurances, even if they are excluding the COVID. Now, some companies in the travel sector offer their own insurances. So Mark, what talks are going on at the moment on that sort of thing?
Sure. Regarding pre-trip cancellation due to government advice, there are talks ongoing with the commercial insurance sector to cover future bookings, which is great. Last year, there were, this was available, but the costs were quite prohibitive for travel companies, and we hope certainly that new policies that come onto the market in the next month or so will be a lower cost and more affordable. I would just point out that schools should check carefully what travel insurance is being provided by the travel company. So at Global Action, we actually offer a travel insurance policy included in the trip cost, and that includes pre-departure cancellation cover if a participant contracts COVID-19 directly before departure and can't travel. But most importantly as well, during the trip, we have a £10 million emergency medical cover, including cover for any participant who contracts COVID-19. So that's important to have in place, I think, for parents, peace of mind as well.
No, that's great. So also on the peace of mind point of view, when we're looking at tour operators and financial protection, can you tell us a bit more about that financial protection, the sort of difference between ABTA and ATOL and how they operate?
Sure. So again, before booking, schools should always check to see if their travel company is ABTA or ATOL protected. ABTA stands for the Association of British Travel Agents, while ATOL stands for the Air Travel Organisers Licence. ATOL protected holidays are package holidays that include flights, and ABTA protection only covers holidays that involve rail, cruise or self-drive, but not package breaks where flights are included.
So what protection is provided?
So, well, each are a government-backed scheme where a full refund to the customer is provided if the travel company goes bust. So, for example, Monarch Holidays customers were protected when the airline went bust in 2017 because they had booked flights and a holiday together through a provider with ATOL certification.
So how does the bonding work?
So a travel company will need normally to have a £40,000 bond in place and will need to pass ATOL's very tough financial assessments in order to be given an ATOL license. The ATOL license is renewed each year by the CAA to the travel company after the company passes these financial fitness assessments.
So what about checking registration numbers that the travel agents put on their websites and literature?
So you can check the company has an ATOL license on the caa.co.uk website, and you can also enter the registration number as well to see, you know, whether that company still has that license in place, which is important.
And are there other forms of bonding that exist as well?
Yeah, sure. So insurance companies do back travel companies with bonding for an annual fee if they do not have that £40,000 bond in place.
So how have things changed over the last year? Is it now more challenging to get the bonding?
I would say it is. Having been through this in the last 3 or 4 months with renewing our own ATOL license at Global Action, and I guess this is a reassuring thing for, you know, school bursars and head teachers listening. Since the pandemic, the Civil Aviation Authority are creating higher standards for travel companies to pass their financial tests, with more criteria they have to meet before offering their annual license renewal. So from a consumer point of view, it's a good thing because it means that there's even further analysis going into place to ensure the financial protection is in place.
So what about the tour operators and the COVID-19 promises? What should bursars be looking for in these promises?
Yeah, sure. So there's quite a few travel companies now that allow you to rebook or reschedule to a later year at no additional cost. So for example, there could be 4 or 5, you know, indicators. For example, Foreign Office advising against travel, the DfE advising against schools traveling, whole group requiring to quarantine at destination, or local or national lockdowns in the UK preventing travel, or the same in the destination preventing travel. In terms of the refund for cancellation within 28 days and unable to rebook, to be honest, this is going to be down to the school relationship, what agreements are in place with the travel company and the school at booking, and it will also be down to the travel company booking conditions as well, down to those contractual arrangements. But we're seeing quite a lot of travel companies sort of waiving or trying to revise their sort of booking conditions to help schools and to help parents and students with flexibility, which is really good.
So are there circumstances where full refunds may not apply?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting one. Some companies are keeping their COVID-19 reassurances fairly simple, and they're quite easy to grasp, and those are available on their websites. You can see ours on our own website. And other companies' offers are far more complex, where it initially looks very easy to follow, but then you have to obviously refer to their terms and conditions with a calculator and start trying to work it all out with numbers. And yeah, you know, you need to be quite careful in looking through that to make sure you understand what you're actually getting from them.
Because you also, I've seen in the terms and conditions that scheduled flights and low-cost airlines, there's differences and refunds are not always given. And so what does that all depend on?
I honestly think it's down to the relationship between the travel company and the airline. You know, this is something we've seen. I suppose there's quite a mixed bag out there within the travel sector. Some travel companies have not received refunds from airlines from summer 2020, despite having been obliged to offer refunds to customers. So you can see it will be down to the airline's policy, but also that relationship between travel company and airline.
Thank you, Mark. So that then brings us on to the questions and answers.
Thank you both. You've covered off quite a few questions within the actual discussions already, but there is a handful in addition. So if I just read them out, and this is an open question to both of you, so feel free to answer as appropriate. The first one, government indemnity was mentioned earlier, and it looks like this is no longer a conversation within the DFE. If so, is there a confidence that the insurance industry will provide such cancellation cover? But also, if they were to do so, as bookings are being made now for the Easter ski trip, for example, could it be too late?
The government have now dropped the idea of an indemnity scheme in the belief that the commercial insurance market will begin to pick this up. But at present, to be honest, the insurers are very reluctant to provide the cover. There are discussions going on, but the costs at the moment appear to be quite prohibitive. Unfortunately, it's not a question I can easily answer because only time would tell, to do with competition between insurers and seeing how that works, really.
Thank you. That links in actually to the next question in respect of competition from insurers. Should we expect a uniform response in respect of what COVID cover is actually going to be provided going forward, regardless of who the insurer may be?
I don't think it will be uniform. Some providers may start to dip their toe in, and if they make a profit, then other insurers will start to offer cover, and different parts of the cover will apply. And it's going to be down to those individual insurance companies. But as with all insurance, there's no absolute uniformity across the board.
Okay, thank you. This next question actually resonates with us here at Hayes Parsons because we have helped our schools and colleges quite a lot in trying to navigate package travel regulation. So this might be a question aimed at Mark at Global Action. But should we expect tour operators to be more accommodating with potential refunds? There have been some quite terse discussions with them to meet their contractual liabilities previously.
Yes, I think so. I think that's a really good question. It will be down to the booking conditions, I think, of the tour operator, but also what financial protection guarantees or agreements are in place at the point of sale, which also form part of the legal contractual arrangement. At Global Action, to give you an example, we are providing schools who are making new bookings as of now with a full refund guarantee if they cancel between now and the 1st of March 2022. And that's something we've never offered before, and it's something that we are really genuine about and wanting to help schools as well with that financial protection.
Thank you. One last question. We sometimes put trips together ourselves. Should we pass this responsibility to a third party fully? If we do ourselves, what are our exposures?
If you are putting together various elements of a trip, or two or more elements of a trip, the school basically becomes the tour operator and is financially responsible for refunding parents. So I would regard the exposure as very high and would always recommend going through an ABTA or ATOL protected tour operator.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the questions which we have received. My thanks again to you both. And for those watching, whether it be live or on the recording, if you wish to discuss any aspect further, our contact details are on the screen now. And just one final point that if you wish to revisit or indeed look at any of our previous webinars over the last 12 months or so for the first time, they can be viewed at the following link on your screen now. But otherwise, it remains for me to say thank you very much for joining us. And that concludes today's webinar.
Thank you.